Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we are discussing the spirit of Sanguinius and what's in store for his future. A general spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe. So you have been warned, but with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, so the end of the Angel Sanguinius was an event that undoubtedly echoed throughout all of 40k history. It's a moment that would have repercussions not only for his bloodline, but in truth the entire Imperium, with Sanguinius' name venerated eternally, behind only that of the God Emperors. There is not a soul alive within the galaxy-spanning Imperium that does not know of Sanguinius' sacrifice. And though he'd be appalled to be worshipped in such a way, it's at least a testament to his actions that fabled day that see him so remembered. Honestly, even the name of the returned Lord Commander Rabute Gilliman, an actual living, breathing Primarch, is most likely not as surely known in those furthest reaches of the galaxy. But Sanguinius is, despite being gone for 10,000 years. And that is respect. And that respect of the Imperium is echoed outside of the lore too, with Sanguinius being by far and away the most popular Primarch. Something I know firsthand, seeing Sanguinius winning any Primarch poll I've ever done on the channel, by an absolute landslide as well. And considering he has such universal popularity, you'd expect the return of the Angel out of any Primarch to be a foregone conclusion. Yet such is or was the manner of his sacrifice. The topic of an angel return instead surely provokes debate. Yet as I've said for years now, in truth he already is back, returned to the galaxy. Perhaps not living and breathing, but undoubtedly a returned presence. We know first and foremost thanks to the novel Black Legion, some of Sanguinius' spirit seemingly remains upon the Vengeful Spirit, the site of his death at the hands of the traitor Warmaster. The Ezekarian assembled in Lupercal's court. Here, where the failed Warmaster of the Imperium had gathered his lackeys and minions, Abaddon instead gathered his brothers and sisters. We stood beneath banners of Imperial conquest, long since rendered meaningless by our betrayals. And in this great chamber, where galactic civil war was planned, we took a quieter counsel amongst the cobwebs. Horus had listened to cheers in here, with half the Imperium chanting his name. We listened to the squealing of rats and wet feasting sounds of things that had mutated far from their verminous origins. Whatever they were, they and the rats they had evolved from kept to the shadows. Sanguinius was there, noble Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels Legion, was there in all his glory, and I saw Sargon hesitate upon entering. He considered the Primarch's manifestation an omen, and likely a bad one. Sanguinius was formed of psychically resonant crystal, as were all the echoes of those slain aboard the Vengeful Spirit throughout its long history. Corridors and hallways across the ship were rimmed with these outgrowths, and they formed most frequently after battle or tumultuous journeys through the eye. I had become accustomed to them. They had been the very first things we had seen when we initially came aboard the Vengeful Spirit in our hunt for Abaddon. They were mindless statues of hazy crystal, easy to dismiss unless one were foolish enough to touch them. They sang when touched, psychically offering numbed images and sensations of their deaths in last, useless gasps of a soul's energy. The phenomenon had briefly fascinated me, but I soon regulated it as beneath notice. Sanguinius had died aboard the Vengeful Spirit, and here his ghost remained, as the warp-saturated steel of the ship's hull resurrected the Primarch along with the other fallen. This was not the first time I had seen Sanguinius's crystalline shade. I had shattered it once, intrigued by the potency of the crystal shards, and one of them now served as the smooth pommel jewel of my false sword. The crystal Primarch always regrew, sometimes here, sometimes elsewhere, just as the other crystal corpses across the ship always regenerated after shattering. So, whether part of his spirit, a ghost, or merely the psychic echo of his slaughter, this undoubtedly furthers the tragedy of the angel's demise, a screaming, weeping echo of the moment of his death. But I have to say, there's also a testament to Sanguinius here, that the traitor Astartes are still given pause at his appearance. That moment of hesitation, dare I say awe. The traitor Sargon there feeling it must be a bad omen, and then later another, Asher Kai, would bow in respect to the form of the angel, despite being a traitor and son of Magnus the Red. It's a little thing, but very telling too. However, we can't say for sure absolute certainty what these appearances of Sanguinius are. It appears more than likely it's some form of psychic echo or imprint, then Sanguinius's spirit itself living on, at least in my opinion. Perhaps if a blood angel ever walked the tainted halls of the Vengeful Spirit, we may see otherwise. However, we of course have seen what surely is Sanguinius's spirit or soul, and a couple of times too, in fact. And the first instance of this would be appearing to Chapter Master Dante himself during the devastation of Baal. There, having fought for days on end, giving everything he had, sallying out into the enemy for one final charge and stand, giving his life to slay the Swarm Lord, Dante would die, only to be sent back to the land of the living by his Primarch. "My son," Sanguinius said, "my greatest son." The Primarch reached out to him. Dante was on his back, but at the same time it was as if he floated in an immense void, and Sanguinius hovered in front of him. And yet, when the Primarch cried, his tears fell forward onto Dante's face. All reality's order was disturbed, but this felt like no dream or vision. When Sanguinius's glowing fingers traced the line of Dante's cheek, they were solid and warm, and they brought into him a sense of peace and holy joy. "You have suffered greatly for mankind's sake," said Sanguinius. His voice was beautiful. "You have won your rest 1,000 times. Rarely has one man given so much. You have been a light in dark times. I would give you any reward. I would take you to my side. I would free you from strife. I would release you from pain." "Yes," said Dante. "Please, I have served so long. Grant me the freedom of death." Sanguinius gave Dante a look of profound sorrow. "I cannot. I regret that I can do none of those things. I need you, Dante. Your suffering is not done." Sanguinius gripped Dante's face in both hands. Strength flowed from the Primarch, driving out death's comfort and replacing it with pain. The scene rippled. He heard the shouts of Space Marines, felt the ghostly touch of living hands upon his armor. Sanguinius faded. "Please no," Dante cried out. "My lord, I have done enough. Please, Let me rest." The light was dying. Sanguinius's smile carried with it the sorrows of 10,000 years. Darkness was returning. The great angel disappeared into it, but his glorious voice lingered a moment. "I am sorry, my son, that you cannot rest. Not yet. Live, my son. Live." I will never not love that scene. What a moment. Dante, after everything, after giving everything, including his life, finally meets his Primarch. The peace of death, only for his Primarch to send him back, to ask more of him. And we've spoken about this moment before, and it's entirely up to you whether you feel this is somehow truly the angel, or instead a mere vision. However, for me, we know powerful souls can and do go to the warp after death. So surely, the Primarchs, being made with the warp, would do. Especially Sanguinius himself, who was one of the more noted psychers amongst them. And you could argue that it's described as a situation within the warp, and not a vision too. Dante was on his back, but at the same time it was as if he floated in an immense void, and Sanguinius hovered in front of him. And yet, when the Primarch cried, his tears fell forward onto Dante's face. All reality's order was disturbed, but this felt like no dream or vision. When Sanguinius's glowing fingers traced the line of Dante's cheek, they were solid and warm. And the clues are there within their entire interaction too. Sanguinius's words praising Dante, calling him his greatest son. Never something Dante would conjure himself within his mind. And the angel's regret, exactly as we saw within the heresy. "I would give any reward. I would take you to my side. I would free you from strife. I would release you from pain. I cannot. I regret that I can do none of those things. I need you, Dante. Your suffering is not done." And then that mention of Sanguinius's smile carrying the sorrow of 10,000 years. As if Sanguinius has been waiting, helpless to act, to guide the Imperium, his sons, out of the dark. It just all feels too on point for Sanguinius himself, the Sanguinius we have seen firsthand. Again, not some vivid conjuring of Dante's imagination. And then we had the second appearance of Sanguinius coming to one of his sons in death too, this time with Chief Librarian Mephiston, as he died during the Rubicon Primaris procedure, which took place within the novel Darkness in the Blood, with Mephiston being tested to be the avatar of the Angel's Rage. The helm receded, revealing a face of unsurpassed beauty. Gold crept over the red. Blonde hair, much like Mephiston's own, blew out in the wind. A titan was revealed, a lord of men, and yet he was human. All the sorrows of the world were expressed by his eyes. With a sharp snap, great white wings opened behind him, washing scented air over the Lord of Death. A terrible understanding smote Mephiston's heart. He knew then he had failed an important test. "Sanguinius, my father, I did not know. I did not know." He fell to his knees. "Failure is not an option for any of us," said the angel. "How?" "It is not possible," said Mephiston. He started to weep. Emotions he had not felt since before he was Calistarius swamped him. This is not real. You cannot be him. It is not real, agreed the figure. The warp is in turmoil. Things that were not possible before the rift are possible now. The Warmaster Abaddon played a desperate gambit. He has unleashed forces that he can never control. The warp itself is not evil. Always remember that, Mephiston. It is corrupted, but it contains everything. And that includes good as well as evil. It includes you. Behind the white wings, the figures in the sky shrank. Still fighting, they descended from the heavens, in the process becoming no bigger than children, then smaller. As they diminished, so the image of Sanguinius grew, becoming a true giant. And a fearful halo blazed around his head, until the angels came to a halt either side of the vision, gold to the right and black to the left. Only then did the titanic angels cease to grow, and the angels let their swords hang by their sides. They looked blankly down on Mephiston. "My Lord Sanguinius, I am sorry." The vision of the Primarch smiled sadly down upon him. The angels blurred. They faded, and the last spectres of them were drawn within the Primarch's being. "I am not Sanguinius. Sanguinius is dead." So a very different interaction to Dante's in a way, yet also similar too. Different with Sanguinius only revealing himself to Mephiston after testing him. Not as seemingly resolute perhaps as with Dante, yet also so similar too, for the sorrow reflected in the angel, and for needing his sons to take on a heavy burden, fulfill the duty for him because he can't do it himself. We saw in life the grief and responsibility Sanguinius had for the flaws in his blood, the curse he gave to his sons, and these two appearances straight up echo that Sanguinius exactly. Again, further evidence to me, it is some part of Sanguinius living on. And far from the "Sanguinius is dead" quote countering that, I actually think it reinforces it. Again, a sorrowful reflection that yes, he's dead, and that's why he is forced to burden his sons instead. Because the angel was never a man who would place a burden on anyone he wouldn't take on himself first. And so why now is Sanguinius appearing? And what does it mean for the future? Well, the angel himself gives us the clues here too. The warp is in turmoil. Things that were not possible before the rift are possible now. The Warmaster Abaddon played a desperate gambit. He has unleashed forces that he can never control. The warp itself is not evil. Always remember that, Mephiston. It is corrupted, but it contains everything, and that includes good as well as evil. So the unleashing of the warp across the galaxy has enabled Sanguinius to be able to act now. A seeming piece of confirmation that Sanguinius's spirit or soul does indeed reside in the warp. Surely meaning that it's a foregone certainty that he will continue to appear now. That he has been freed from his confines in a way. That now he can help his sons. However, there is an alternative possibility too. That perhaps that "I am not Sanguinius" comment reaches. That maybe given the unleashing of the warp, the resulting psychic awakening across the galaxy, maybe much like the Emperor is reaching God status, maybe something similar is happening with the angel. Maybe that is why Sanguinius is only appearing now. We know he is worshipped across the Imperium, second only to the Emperor himself. So could it just be possible that some form of God Sanguinius has been birthed within the warp instead? Not something on the Emperor's level, but definitely something. And if that's the case, could that just be the method that would maybe enable Sanguinius to truly walk the galaxy once again, appearing within the physical realm as he grows in power? A method and mechanic to truly have the angel return. Or could we even see him possessing his sons in some manner, a la like we've been seeing with the Emperor? Is it the true spirit of Sanguinius out there that Abaddon's inadvertently unleashed? Or is it somehow another rising power of the warp, thanks to the Imperium's worship? Whatever the truth, it's most definitely only a matter of time until we see him again, and when we maybe begin to get more answers. As always everyone, what do you think? Are these sightings of Sanguinius evidence of his spirit living on within the warp? Or is it maybe a result of the Imperium's worship? And how do you think the psychic awakening has affected it? If indeed it has. And what lies in store for the angel's future? Where will we continue to see him appear? Will it be confined to the warp, within seeming visions with his sons? Or will we begin to see him to act? And could he even appear to his returned brothers? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.